who was really driving the vehicle. And we packed off and then allowed the First Lady and its convoy to go. As soon as the last vehicle came, then I instructed him to follow. And then we followed, and then this gentleman just pointed a pistol from the back and fired. So for me, I thought it was just a joke, but then it was a real. So the blade came, unfortunately hit the lower part of the vehicle door, and then the glasses broke. But Almame did not know what had happened. So we continued up to the meeting point. Then I told him that we were fired at. He said, no, that's not true. So we alighted and looked at the vehicle, and then there's a mark there. Then I had to go to Bundu police station to report the matter. And when I went to the police station, one Pass Silva was the station officer. He said if we can get mechanics to remove the door of the vehicle and check whether actually it was true or not. So we paid somebody who did it, and then they removed the broken glasses and then found the bullet. Then he confirmed, yes, this is really a bullet. So I gave my statements, and that was the end of it.
You said when you tailed after the last vehicle in the convoy of the First Lady, somebody aimed at you in that vehicle and fired.
Yes.
Who was that person?
It was a soldier. I can't know the name, but it's a soldier dressed in a military dress. I can definitely say it's a soldier of the Gambia Armed Forces. And it's one of the escorts.
In your view, did the soldier know at the time that you belonged to the press?
Yes, because like I said, the press is clearly written in a bold mark in front of my vehicle. So anybody 50 meters away will know that this is a journalist.
You said that you saw the soldier aim and fired. In your view, was it aimed at you or just at the vehicle?
In my view, it's aimed at me, because the vehicle really, there are human beings using the vehicle. So, and this vehicle is marked press very clearly. In my own opinion, I might be wrong or right, but that's my opinion that I was aimed at.
From where you were sitting, your assessment is that he was aiming at you instead of the vehicle?
Yes.
And when you reported to Bunding Police and a bullet was recovered, did the police mount an investigation?
Not to my knowledge. I gave my statements, I left. Nobody called me again. I didn't go back there anymore, knowing the situation.
What situation?
This is, in my opinion, I assess the APRC government as a military government, because it's a military turned civilian. So for me, it's still military in a civilian dress. And these are people who, from the word go, assume that we journalists are bad people. We are illegitimate sons. In Africa, we should go 6 feet deep. We should be jobless. That's it. So therefore, following such an attempt on my life under their regime would not really yield anything truthful. So I decided not to follow it up, but then the statement, I really wrote my statement.
You have used 3 interesting descriptions of journalists. Illegitimate sons of Africa, should go 3 feet deep, 6 feet deep, and should be jobless. Can you explain each of those?
These were the words used by the former president of this country, Yahya Jammeh, at several occasions, at political rallies, at press conferences, at other statements. This is his word. So being the head of the state and using such words, obviously they're like policy statements. If a president speaks, that's a policy statement.
Can you explain the context in which such words were used? What information or what message did he intend to convey?
The message, from my point of view, that he's really sending is that journalists are against his government, journalists are bad elements, and I think his ultimate objective is to keep the citizenry in darkness. Because if the journalists are not allowed to do their job freely, information will not be given. And if information is not given, the citizens would not know what is going around. It will only be in a particular corner, but it cannot be widespread. What happens in this hall, if the media is not here, the outside world would not know. So from that point of view, I think this is why he wants to eliminate the media.
And explain this issue of 6 feet deep. What does it mean?
6 feet deep literally means the person will be killed and buried. That's the literal meaning of it. And at the time of saying it, I personally do not think that actually he meant killing. But then as the years go on, actually we've seen that he really meant what he said literally, that is to kill.
Okay. We would come back to that, this issue of 6 feet deep and what it means and how that has been actualized. So let's proceed with the investigations. You said you never went back and you never heard from them again. But how did you feel knowing what has happened to you and that vehicle?
I feel very bad. I feel there is no justice because you cannot attempt on somebody's life, and yet still the authorities that be are not interested in investigating to bring the culprits to book. So I feel very bad. I feel really there is no justice, and and it continues to be the order of the day.
Can you give us a date? Could you situate this event with date? When did it occur?
Like I said, this should be in 1998. But I really cannot recall the precise dates, unless maybe later if I refer to some of my notes, which are not with me, but I can really do that later.
Were you scared after this event?
No, I wouldn't say I was scared, because if I were scared, I would have broken my pen. But I still keep pushing my pen. I wasn't scared at all, and I kept doing my job. I just have to be extra careful, that's all. Because you can't so bravely until you are dead, then that's not bravery. You can do your job with courage, but also be very mindful of your security. So it gives me extra thought to be more careful, but I wasn't scared.
And this threat of sending people 6 feet deep, did it at any point materialize against the journalists?
Oh yes, it did. In 2004, even before 2004, there were a series of arson attacks on media outlets. The independent newspaper suffered from it. We got all the printing press burned down to ashes. And Radio 1 of late George.
You remember the exact date?
Of Dada's killing?
Yes.
I think no journalist can ever forget that, particularly me. I have a good relationship with Dada. We belong to a club called the Lions Club. We joke a lot. He's a fine gentleman. I can't forget it. I can't forget it.
What was the impact of Dada's killing?
Dada's murder actually was a big turning point in the lives of journalists in this country. Like I said, it really proved to us that Jammeh and his government really are not only playing with words, they really want to do it. Because they've killed one of us. Killed one of us very close to a police station. I cannot imagine that. Deda's car was pursued and they passed the police intervention unit in Kanifing, and not too far from there he was shot and killed. And up till now, we have not had any results, tangible results, as to who killed Deda. So therefore, that means that the system is in charge. And with all these arson attacks on the media, not a single person is taken before the court. But then, from these 22 years, several of us had suffered from the Jammeh regime, and several of us flee the country in fear of their lives. But not a single person has been taken to court because you have committed an atrocity against a journalist. All the arson attacks, not a single case in court. Come 2004, the killing of Deda, not a single person in court.
But do you know whether the killing of Deda was investigated at all? Because at this stage, you are a vice president, second vice president of the GPU. So I imagine that you would know whether investigations were conducted or not.
I would say a so-called investigation was conducted.
Can you explain that?
So-called in the sense that when Deda was killed, the executive met and we took certain decisions. There was a media blackout, there was a protest march, and we went to the Minister of Interior and deliver our demands. And one of the demands is to investigate his killing. Shortly after that, we were made to understand that there was a report of the investigation. To our dismay and surprise, the investigation results tend to blame Deda for his death.
Can you explain how, as far as you can recall?
Because I think one of the phrases or lines in the investigation indicates that Deda was a womanizer, and that is why he was killed, which is totally wrong. So that's why I said it was a so-called investigation. We are saying the circumstances surrounding the killing of Deda should be investigated. Who killed Deda and why was he killed? And we knew very well from other sources, though we do not have, we cannot bring proofs at the time, because nobody would volunteer to give evidence. We knew he was killed by people. And it must be people of the government. Otherwise, they would have been taken before the court. We have seen common criminals who have committed crimes like that, and they were immediately arrested and taken before the court. Why are these particular criminals not before the court? So my conclusion is he was killed by the operatives of the Jammeh regime. And that is why there was no tangible investigation into his death, and that's why I refer to it as a so-called investigation.
You've used two interesting words. He was killed by people. He was killed by operatives of the Jammeh regime. Who are you specifically referring to?
I am talking about the people who carry on Jammeh's killings, and we made to understand that these are junglers. These are a group of soldiers and other types of people who work for Jammeh, and they work according to his orders. So he was killed. I can say he was killed by Jammeh. Now, how he killed him is through his people, because Jammeh himself may not go and kill him, but then he used people to kill Deda. And he used people to burn down our presses. He used people to burn down our houses. He used people to aim and kill us.
You attribute responsibility for the murder of Deda Haidara on Yahya Jammeh.
Very well.
And your testimony is that it is his operatives who actually executed Jammeh's decision or order to kill Deda Haidara.
Very well. That's my position.
But then you it's based on suspicion and not tangible evidence, is it?
No, it's not based on suspicion. Obviously, I don't know, I'm not a lawyer. You're a lawyer. Maybe you are using your lenses of law. But what I'm saying that if a government, a responsible government, such an important person like Deda was killed, I would have thought that government would have instituted an investigation into the killing and come out with a good report to the citizens. If that is not done, I will hold the government responsible of killing Deda Hydra.
Fair enough, fair enough. Let us move on a little bit. You said the GPU made certain demarches to the government. How were those demarches received by the government?
Well, can you come back again? Demands, you mean you made demands?
You submitted a petition to the government, didn't you?
Yes, we did.
Which included certain demands.
Yes.
How were those demands dealt with by the government, as far as you know?
They were not dealt with seriousness, because the key demand is we want a proper investigation into the killing of Deda Hydra. That was not done. The investigation we have wasn't sufficient. We even suggested to them that if you think you are handicapped, you don't have the capacity, sought for international help so that the death can be properly investigated. That was not done as well. So they are not serious with the killing, and like I said, my assumption is because they killed him, they cannot investigate themselves. That's my assumption.
This was a significant event. Did it change relations between the media and the government for the better?
Whether the relations have changed for the better?
Yes.
It has not. Since Deda was killed, up to the time Jammeh left this country, the relations between the Jammeh government and the media was never a good relationship.
As far as you are concerned, did you have any other encounter with law enforcement after Deda's killing?
After Deda's killing, yes. 1 year after Deda's killing, then I have assumed the leadership of the Gambia Press Union as the president. We called an international conference to commemorate the 1-year anniversary of his killing. This was a tool we wanted to use as a pressure tool, and we had speakers all over, media organizations. Media Foundation was here, and the IFJ was here, WAJA was here, and we had several speakers. We have invited the government side, but just, it would have been normal for them to come, but they did not turn up. And one thing we had planned to do at the end of that conference was the entire conference to go to the site where Deda was killed, because we never wanted that site to go missing. So we wanted to put a symbol there so that it could be remembered that this is where Deda was killed. When we attempt to move to the site, to the surprise of some people, the entire place was sealed off by the police intervention, soldiers, and we were not allowed to get near to the spot where Deda was killed. And our objective and aim was to put a mark there so that it could be remembered. During that period, one of our female journalists, and then finally I found them at the hospital. And then she was in a very bad mood, and then the doctors took good care of her. That was a harassment, as far as I'm concerned, on the media. On a day when we were trying to recall how our colleague was killed, and we want to find some solutions and answers to it, another colleague almost died because she fainted, and then the doctor said she had was a stress or whatever, and then things like that. So she could have died, but she was taken care of by. So that's also another encounter that It may not be personally, but then it's on the media.
And you find that to be an unlawful hindrance to the exercise of your rights?
Yes.
And you believe that that only happened simply because you were journalists?
Simply because we are journalists? And why would they prevent us from having a mark at where Deda was killed?
Did you make a request to government to do that?
After that incident?
No, before the incident.
No, we didn't make any request, but it was in our programs that then we will go to the site and then put a mark there. So we do not think we need to take permission from government for that.
Indeed.
It is a known fact. He was gone down at that spot.
And as far as you are concerned, did you have any personal running in with the law enforcement authorities soon after that event?
Soon after that event, no. I didn't have any direct confrontation with them. And
but were you arrested at some point in 2005 or 2006?
I got my, if I may put it that way, second arrest in 2006. Yes.
This was while you were still at the Independent? You were with the Independent?
Yes, when I was with the Independent.
Can you tell us about this?
Yes, like I can say this was precisely on the 27th March 2006. I got some calls in the night and early morning that I should not go to the office because my editor-in-chief, Musa Sedikan, was picked up late in the night for reasons that the informer did not tell me. This is one Lamin Jai who was a staff of the Independent newspaper. I said I will be the last person not to go to the office. Rather, I would visit every police station to know where Musa is kept, rather than run away from my responsibilities as the general manager of the newspaper. So I went to office that morning, not knowing that everybody that comes to the office is arrested. Even government officials who are sent there to drop mails were arrested. So when I went, it wasn't normal around 10 to find Independent newspaper 10 o'clock in the morning very lonely. It's not normal. But because I have that privileged information, I suspected what was going on. So I just walked in as if nothing happened and headed towards the office, and then two people in plain clothes called my attention whether I work here. I said yes. And they asked me who I am. I said I am Madi. They said then you are under arrest. I said but who are you? And they produced a card to say they are from the office of the president. And people during those days who refer to themselves as coming from the office of the president are the NIA operatives. And I guess it is still the same, starting to be corrected. So they asked me to stand a while, and they made a few calls, and then a police pickup came. So I was put in the pickup and driven to the police intervention unit at Canifing.
What happened when you arrived there?
When I arrived there, to my surprise, the entire staff were there, and others that I don't recognize.
Entire staff of which?
Of the Independent newspaper. Because I thought what they were doing is, what they have done to me is what they have done to others. So anybody who comes, whether you are a staff or you have any connection with the paper, you are arrested.
From GM to cleaner?
Even messengers, government messengers who come to drop mails were arrested. I think the order was arrest anybody who comes to the Independent premises. Before
your crime must have been very big.
I think so. I think so. So, but I didn't know what crime we have committed. So I moved. I went. I was asked to sit among them. So we were all sitting outside, and just opposite us, entire police hierarchy were there, from the Inspector General of Police, then was Usman Sonko, and other high-ranking officers that I may not recognize, but they're all in their uniforms. So I thought we must have done committed a very serious crime. And they were calling us one by one. And anybody that goes would be escorted to leave the premises. They wouldn't allow you to come back to the main group. So what they have discussed with the person, we wouldn't have known that. So that is how they were dealing with us until I was left alone on the bench. The last person before me was Julde, who handles our key. He's a little bit disabled. He tried as much as he is disabled, he rushed to come and speak to me before he was pushed away. And he told me, "Uncle, they have taken the keys." He was taken away. So I knew the keys to the offices of the Independent was taken. And then I was called. I was the last person to call. And when I went, they didn't tell me anything. They just said, "Well, we are going to Banjul with you." So they put me in a police double wagon, pickup, white one. And then I was sandwiched by the senior officers and driven straight to the NIA.
At this stage, did you see any of your editors?
No.
At this stage, did you know whether any other independent newspaper staff was detained or arrested?
No, at that point, as we were driving to Banjul, I don't.
How about Musa? At this stage, did you know his whereabouts?
I don't know it on the way, even though I was given an information that he was picked, but I didn't know where he was. At that point in time, because now we've left the Kanifing, they're taking me to Banjul. As we entered Banjul, they branched off on the left and then drove me straight into the NIAs. And they sat me down on a bench. As I sit on the bench, then I know Musa was there, because Musa at the time was crying bitterly of stomach ache. So I was sitting outside and he was calling for help. But nobody went to his help.
Nobody went to his help?
No.
What kind of help was he asking for?
He was complaining of stomach ache. He was citing that he needed help. So I was on the bench. I can recognize his voice because we're colleagues. I knew very well this voice is Musa's voice. Until around 6, when...
What time did you arrive at the NIA?
It should be around 3, 4. It was on a Friday.
In the afternoon?
Yeah, it was on a Friday.
Okay, proceed, please.
So around 6, then they brought Musa out from the cell. And then that was the time we sat together and we were waiting. The next thing, I wasn't asked any questions at the time. They were just asked to follow them. They put us in a Mercedes-Benz and drove us to Banjul police station.
At this stage, were you able to have a conversation with Musa?
Oh, yes.
Did you discuss the reasons for your arrest?
No, he just told me that he was arrested in the middle of the night with armed soldiers. That scared his entire family, his wife and children. And when he was brought, he was put in the cell. But they didn't tell him why he was arrested.
And for you, were you told why you were arrested?
I was not until, I think 5 days later.
5 days, you mean?
5 days later. Because when we were taken from the NIA around 6, we were taken straight to Banjul police station. And the instruction given to the police is, keep them here, nobody should talk to them, and they should not go anywhere. So we were packed in the cell, years, and he has never gone to court. And that was interesting for us because as journalists, you always try to get your news anywhere. So for us, that is an interesting thing, and we do not have pens to write, but then these are things that we can write few days or few hours later. So It was interesting that after 5 days, then we were taken up for questioning.
But during these 5 days, were you allowed some of the basic necessities, like shower, for instance? Were you able to shower and change clothes?
At the Banjul station, yes, the prisoners are so much. Toilet facility is there, bath is there, but you take turns. At least the Banjul police station is far better for me than the NIS cells. So, like you rightly said, yes, we were able to at least bath 1 or 2 times. And we don't have access to our homemade foods because they wouldn't allow anybody, even though I realized that one of my daughter, Fatimata, is called Nanding, had visited several police stations, and they would always tell her that he's not with me, with us rather.
Did she visit the NIA?
She did. She went to almost every place, and lately she seek an advice of a lawyer to take the matter before the court, because for her she thinks after 72 hours I should be taken before the court. But this was lawyer Kamara, she told me later. And Lamin Kamara later advised her to slow it down, because this is at a time when some attempted coup plotters were being tried. So if she wants to push too much, they can charge me for treason.
But at this stage, nobody knew where you were?
No. Nobody.
And your family was not given information as
They were not given information, and they have gone to everywhere. So they were in fact, they're more traumatized than myself, because I know where I am, and I know where they are. But they don't know where I am, and they don't know what is happening to me. So my family members don't know where I was all those days.
And the government refused to provide information to show that you were actually in their custody?
They refused. They refused to do that, and later on I have access, when I got my freedom, I have access to newspapers. There were a lot of pressure on the government from the International Federation of Journalists, from the West African Journalists Association, WAJA, from the Gambia Press Union, from individuals, lots of them. There were a lot of stories about us and the close of the independent newspaper. At one point, my attention was brought to that in the NIA, but we'll come to that later.
So when you were arrested and the other staff released, what happened to the independent newspaper?
The independent was completely under the police sealed the independent off completely for access. Nobody accesses independent. There was police presence 24 hours for 2 good years. Nobody accesses independent. Even after our release, we cannot access it. There was police presence for 24 hours. So we are not allowed to access it, and that was very bad.
We will come back to this later. So at the police station, you had facilities to shower, but you could not change clothes?
No.
You could not have home food?
No.
Were you allowed access to a lawyer?
No, I was not allowed, because for me, as their captive, they didn't allow me that. Even my daughter, who is outside trying to get a lawyer, could not. So I wasn't allowed to have an access to a lawyer, and the instruction is nobody should talk to me, to talk to us.
And for 5 days, you did not know the reasons why you were there?
No.
Can you tell us?
The 6th day, we were taken upstairs to the, I think the CID's office, Criminal Investigation Divisions. I think the gentleman there was one Mr. Keta, or I can't really remember the name. So, but he was in charge. And the first question he asked us was, do I know why I was there? I said, I don't know. I'm your captive. You should tell me why I'm here. He said, okay, you are here because you ran a story that is not true. I said, yes, I know about that. But I have dealt with that. As a journalist, we've dealt with that. We ran a story, the aftermath of the attempted coup, that Sambaba was part of the coup plotters and he was arrested. That was one of our headlines. And then the next day, Samba came to the office and complained.
Who was this Sambaba?
Samba was one time director of NIA, and he was also one time a cabinet minister during the Jammeh's regime. For
which ministry?
I think it was youth, if I can remember. I'm not too sure, either youth or interior, I'm not too sure. Proceed, he was a cabinet minister.
Proceed, please.
And so he complained. We assigned a senior reporter to him. He took his complaints. He disassociated himself with the coup, that he was not arrested. If he was arrested, he would not have been talking to us, which is a fact. And then the next day, we published it in our newspaper. As journalists, that is how we correct our mistakes. We publish that with an apology. So I told the police officer, as far as we are concerned, we have not wronged the government. We've wronged an independent Gambian who is not a government servant, and we have apologized to him, and we have carried a correction. And he called for a copy of that. So one of his men went around. A few minutes later, they came back with that copy where we've carried the corrections.
So we have heard this story before. Was this not a case of mistaken identity? The person charged with an offense or accused of being involved in that attempted coup was another Sambaba, but of a different character. This Sambaba worked in the army, as opposed to Sambaba, the minister.
Well, as far as our newspaper is concerned, and as far as I am concerned, we use his photo, the same Sambaba with that was a former minister and a director. That's the photo we use, and that's the story we use. And that's the person who came to the office to complain.
What I'm trying to drive at is that the true story was that another Sambaba was arrested and detained, and not the actual Sambaba you referred to.
It may be, but in our case, because when this story was out, myself and the editor-in-chief and the author of the story, Lamin Fati, we haven't really gone into that to say, well, no, this is a wrong Sambaba, we mean the Sambaba in the army. So for us, it's the Sambaba that is the former minister, and we carried his photo and an apology. So I told the investigating officer at the police station that we have taken care of this because we have apologized, and for us, that's the end of the case. And he seems to...
Essentially, it means that whatever the error was, it was corrected in a subsequent issue of the paper.
Yes, and that's the media. We are not unlike the other professions like your own or the doctors. When a doctor had a mistake in the operation and the person dies, he will not come and tell people, oh, it's my mistake, I did that and that. But for us, we publish our mistakes in the front page of the newspapers. So
typically, it is accusation, first page, apology, last page.
No.
But in this case, was Mr. Sambaba satisfied with the correction and the apology?
He was, because after that story was published, even the fact that we assigned somebody to him, he explained everything, he walked out of the office happy. And the story was out. He had never confronted us again. But I know the government didn't leave it that way. I'm sure because later on we had a case on that until they have to sentence our colleague, and the GPU have to pay a fine of 50,000. That's about the same Sambaba story. So Sambaba, I believe, was later screwed, and then he took the matter to court. But that was the proper way to do it, rather than arresting and harassing and closing the newspaper for that. Somebody is a civil, is a Gambian citizen. If we wrong him, he has all rights to go to the courts.
So having shown proof to Mr. Keita that this matter was dealt with, done and dusted, apology made and accepted, what happened next?
He said, as far as he's concerned, He's happy with the choice. He said, you can go. And then we were just driven away. The vehicle that we were put in never went straight to the NIS. They drove us around Banjul. I guess they just want to make sure that whoever is following us would not know where we are taken to. And finally, we went back to NIA offices again. This time, we were put in cell, both of us in the same cell. No. We were put in separate cells. We can be talking, but we can't see. And we've been in that situation for...
In which part of the NIA?
If you go into the main entrance, you will turn on your right. That's where you have the administrative, some of the administrative offices. And there are cells there.
Would it be the old investigations building?
It may be, but I'm not familiar with the offices of NIA. That was my...
But it's not the notorious Bambadinka?
No, this is an ordinary cell, though very small and tight. Because Bambadinka, I would have thought it's a hole by the name. I don't know. This is a cell. I don't know, but this is not Bambadinka, I think. But it's a horrible cell, because it's a very small cell, and you can't even stretch properly. If you are to lie down, you must coiled, otherwise you cannot. Or you lean on the wall and then sleep. And
were you alone in that cell?
Yes, for the first, I think 4 or 5 days, we were alone. I was in separate, we were in separate cells. And then, I think the 5th day, they brought in another prisoner. This is a Senegalese who later we became very good friends. It's called Naper. We had, before we left the NIA, we have this nickname. We call one another Manger Couché. Because I can't speak French very well, but he said, my boy, Manger Couché, you sleep, you eat and sleep. So
Manger Couché.
Yeah, sleep, eat and sleep, something like that. And he's called Naper. Naper is a police officer in the Senegalese army. So he was going to his native home in Casamas, and at the airport he had to stop to go to the airport and pick a colleague. So whilst at the airport, according to him, and he was there, he was suspected of having relations with the Casamas rebel leader. Cannot remember the name of the person. And then they were going to arrest him, and it was tough. They had a good fight, and eventually they were able to overcome him. When they brought him at the NIS, then that was the time they moved me from my cell to Musa's cell. So we started sharing cells, and they put Naper in my cell.
So this would have been after 4 or 5 days?
Yes.
Okay, meaning it's about 10 days in detention?
Yes, at that point.
So this 4 to 5 days at the NIA, I know you were eating because manger, you were sleeping, but let's talk about the feeding. You were not receiving food from home?
No.
Where were you getting food from?
When we were taken there, I had some money on me, so when I was put in the cells, I had to empty my pockets, and then they took note of the money I have and things like that. So I would ask the guards at the entrance to buy bread for me from that, and we also buy mosquito coils from there, and stuff like that. So I was eating from my...
In government custody?
Yeah. You
are using your own money for your survival?
Feed myself, yes. And I use my own money also to buy mosquito coils, because it's highly infested with mosquitoes. Thank God I didn't catch any malaria during my stay.
And during the first 5 days in detention at NIA headquarters, did anything untoward happen to you the first 5 days?
The first 5 days, no, but then we were always disturbed in the night. We used to hear a lot of cries, loud cries, and we used to hear names like Musa. Musa Jame and things like that. So, but we really don't know what was happening. But actually, we later knew what was happening.
How did you know what was happening?
Because we were also subjected to the same tortures.
Tell us about it.
We, on 2 occasions, the Musa Jame and Tumbul Tamba.
Let's take it one by one. First occasion.
Here, I may not be able to tell you the dates. I can only tell you it happened twice.
That is understandable. Tell us the first instance.
First incident.
What time of the day? What happened? Who was involved?
This is it always happens between 3 and 4 a.m. in the morning. And Musa and Tumbul will come with
Musa who?
Musa Jame and Tumbul Tama. These are people who work in the army, but when they come to the NIS during that time, they are not in uniform, but they come with people who are in uniform.
What kind of uniforms?
Gambia National Army uniform. So I believe.
How many would they normally come with?
Should be between 6, 7, maximum 8. It's the early morning, so it's not very bright. Can figure out 6, 7, not more than 8, but I cannot tell who they are. But Musa and Tumbul Tamba, I can, because they are the ones who give instructions. So the soldiers will always be calling their names, and they will always give instructions. And interestingly, in the morning, Tumbul will not come to the NIA, but Musa will always come in the NIA in the broad daylight, and he will come bluffing and then tell us, "You stupid journalists, before you leave here, we'll teach you a lesson." So I really know Musa. I can, even now it's like he's standing in front of me, but he's late now. Both him and Tumbul all died.
Did you hear about how they died?
I don't. When Musa died, I was in Russia attending the IFJ conference where I was elected to represent Africa. So I don't know how he died. But then later I was told they died of natural sickness and they were admitted, and some of them were speaking things that they were doing. I'm not privileged to those incidents, but I was told.
So while there, did Musa carry out the threats he was making while taunting you?
Yes, because the first incident, we were taken out early in the morning, but prior to the tortures, they have changed our cells conditions from what they call hard detention to light detention. So this time around, when the tortures were taking place, we were not in the cells. They had moved us to the reception, which is broad, which is bigger mattresses, and then you spend the night there.
At that reception, did you find other people there?
Yes, we joined with other people.
Like who?
I remember there is a lady from the then Minister of Information. I can't really recall the name very well, and yeah, and this my Senegalese friend Napier also was there. And that's it. That's all I can remember. Lots of people come and go. Some stay there for a while, and in the mornings we'll vacate the reception and sit somewhere inside under a mango tree until late evening when everybody closed. Then we'll move over to the reception. They call that light detention. So it was during the period of that light detention that the tortures took place. The first incident, like I said, Musa came with his men, call our names.
Musa who?
Musa Jame and Tumbul Tamba, both soldiers with the Gambia National Army. They will come with soldiers, like I said, maximum 7, 8, something like that, and we were called out. So as we walked out of the reception, then they started kicking and slapping us. So we knew actually we should psychologically be ready for a torture. Personally, I quickly was prepared for a torture. So I wasn't surprised that I was going to be tortured. So I wouldn't have any shock to that extent. So we've been slapped, kicked, and then taken behind. If you enter the NIAs, there's the experience when people tell me that they kill, I really doubt it. But then anybody can die from that beating. Because these are people who are really, I don't think they are themselves. I don't have any proof, but I don't think anybody with your normal senses can beat your fellow human being like that for doing nothing. So whether they are under the influence of alcohol or whatever, I don't think they are really themselves. So they beat, like I said, with cables, with sticks, boots, their belts, and they beat anyhow.
Mr. Ceesay, it's time for our first break. So with your indulgence, Mr. Chair, we leave it at that until we resume after the break.
Thank you, Council, and thank you, Mr. Ceesay. We will take a 30-minute break and come back at 12 noon. Meeting is adjourned.
Ah, dama ne ana Jambangs Royal Gramo. Tabaski bii di ñëw man Jambangs Royal Gramo laa si taama. Ana jeeg ñi, ana jege maani, ana suma caameñ yu baax yi. Yéen ñi nga xam ne da ngeen am jabar, yéen ñi nga xam ne da ngeen a waaj a sëy si, yéen ñi nga xamante ne ni pare ngeen tabaski bi mu baax. Daw leen dem seeti Jambangs Royal Gramo. Ak Jambangs Royal Gramo ñu ngi leen fa amal li nga xam ne moom mooy jasna. Li nga xam ne moom mooy WhatsApp. Ah, ana Facebook, venkeri di daloo. Ma ne VIP lay wóor man. Ana borom takay cuubi takkaa ngi nii dama ne dem leen seeti Jambangs Royal Gramo. Jambangs Royal Gramo nag amal leen cuubi façon xeet bu nekk bu leen demee nag ñu jaay leen ko si price bu yomba yóbbul leen ko ba fu ngeen bugg mu àgga. Ah, ba tey nag kon ko bugg si cuubi yi mun ngaa call ki nga xam ne moom mooy Jambangs Royal Gramo si 78 255 87 78 255 87 mbete nga oo ko si 299 2967 299 2967 mbete ba tey rek mun ngaa email xale bi nga xam ne moo nekk si gannaaw Jambangs Royal Gramo ba tey it nga email ko si jambangfatou mk@gmail.com. Ah, dama ne Jambangs Royal